welcome to today's episode of the Balanced Approach podcast. I'm your host, Louis Padian. I hope that you're doing well and are enjoying the podcast and the topics we've covered so far. These podcasts are released every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, so be sure to subscribe wherever you are listening to be kept up to date. So today we'll be covering 3 reasons why people fail and 3 ways to overcome those reasons. Before we start, I thought it was important to give you a quick overview of the landscape on sort of how successful people are on average. And I found 5 really interesting and quite mind-blowing statistics in regards to setting goals and failure rates. So 80% of people give up on their New Year's resolution before February. Only 8% of people actually achieve their goals. 45% of people abandon their goals within the first 30 days. 70% of people who set fitness goals give up within 6 months. And 50% of people who start a new diet give up within 12 weeks. So the stats aren't in our favour by the looks of it. But from my opinion and my experience, there's lots of things that we can do. There's lots of things that we can notice and sort of prevent, but also there's things that we can put in place after to ensure that we don't fall into those quite damning and disheartening statistics. So let's look into the reasons of my specific experience of why people tend not to achieve their goals or fail. Number 1 on the list was setting unrealistic goals and not having a plan. The amount of times that I've seen people set themselves up for failure before they even started is mind-blowing. They think, right, I'm going to improve my health. I'm going to cut out all the foods that I think are bad. There's foods that they enjoy that they think, right, I'm going to stop eating them, which again just leads them to be miserable. They potentially start a new fitness regime, like the 90 hard, or one of those ridiculous ones where you do a home workout that absolutely destroys you every day, which leaves them unable to move following it, and they just try and hold on to these plans for dear life and hope for the best. So this may seem familiar, it sounds familiar to me, and I've noticed it and I've done it myself, so I'm not ignorant to all of this. I've done these in the past myself, and it's almost like letting off a fire. There's a quick fizz, a big bang, and it's almost over before you know it. And my question really would be, how long do you think you can last for? Which really isn't what we should be asking when it comes to healthy, sustainable changes. That how long can I enjoy this? How long can I suffer for it? And the answer is probably not very long. This often leaves people feeling massively disheartened, and it's not their fault. And a key part of this is realizing that it isn't because we're lazy, it isn't because we're not trying hard enough, or we don't have enough drive, or there's not enough effort going in. It's a lack of a clear and achievable plan that's almost tripped them up before they even got going. So that's number 1, is setting unrealistic goals and not having a plan. Secondly, which is quite similar but also is a separate reason, is they don't plan for reality. So people always set out with the best intentions, and in my belief, and I honestly believe that people are good people and they mean well, but life happens, life gets in the way, and people often don't consider that or aren't prepared for that. So again, people setting out, when I was a fitness instructor sitting in the gym, someone would sit in front of me and I'd go, right, so how often do you feel that you're going to be coming to the gym? They've never been to a gym before, or they haven't been for years, and they go, right, I plan to come in 5-6 days a week, I'll be here at 6 a.m. and I go, fantastic, brilliant. And potentially, as my job as a fitness instructor back then, or a PT, was to go, right, so maybe I need to manage expectations a little bit here. And when we look into it, they have lots of other commitments. They've got really busy work life. They've got kids that they need to look after, and who have got activities and lives of their own that they need to support. They potentially work really long hours, or potentially differing hours each day, that their schedule changes at the last minute. They are busy at work, they might have cutting deadlines, or even just have social or family events as well that are coming up. So I speak to this person on a Sunday and they go, right, Monday, 5-6 days a week, I'm going to hit the gym this week, and thing comes up, they've got a business event or that's coming up and they have to stay late work on the Monday, which means that they're tired on the Tuesday, and then it rolls around to Wednesday and they're like, right, I said I was going to go 6 days this week, I've already missed today and I can't go this morning. And they've not already achieved what they set out to achieve. And this is where my job as a PT was to help manage that, going, right, so what potential things would stop you achieving this goal, of this process goal that we've set here? Things like family, things like work commitments, or things like they've got already another physical activity that they do, or team sport community that they're a part of. So it's taking all those things into account and making sure that they are not setting themselves up to fail before they even get going. Another one that I've seen as well, and January is really, really hot for this, that people want to improve their diet after in the new year. They've got these New Year's goals, and as we've just heard of the New Year's goals, they're quite hard to be successful with. The failure rates are quite high, and they think, right, I'm going to try and get healthier, and big trend, which I understand, and I think at the heart is a good cause, but I think people join for the wrong reasons, or it's sold for the wrong reasons, is Veganuary. And personally, as a nutritionist, I think it's great that people try to get more fruits and veg into their diet. I don't think you need to exclude animal products from your diet in order for it to be healthy, but I think it's a great initiative to increase people's fibre intake, fruits and vegetables, having more nutrients in there. But some of these people, they go in there with the best intentions, and they might not have the skills, equipment, or even like fruits and vegetables, and yet they're here jumping in both feet first, cooking out foods that they enjoy, and excuse the pun, it's a bit of a recipe for a disaster. So that's where that all or nothing mindset and not living reality and going, right, so maybe if I want to eat more fruits and veg, then actually let's have a look at how I can slightly increase that, instead of going, right, all or nothing, I'm going to have a completely vegan based diet when currently they don't eat any fruits and vegetables. So the second one is they don't plan for reality, and I think that's a huge part of it. The third is a lack of support. So changing your health and wellness habits is really hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It can be made easier, but change is hard, and behavior change is really hard. So this is where trying to do it by yourself can make it even more difficult. Don't know if you can resonate with this, but I've had it in previous jobs where I've had a manager who doesn't really check in on me. I've got projects going on, and sometimes they just tend to drag, and work's slow to get done on them, and that lack of accountability sort of makes things harder than they need to be. And it works in a two-way street. It's harder because you're not getting accountability, but potentially you haven't got that opportunity to ask someone as well to check in with them. Or potentially as well where you've sat down with yourself, not told anyone, but you're going to try and achieve a certain goal, potentially lose some weight, and you've started dieting, but you've not told anyone and nobody's picked up on it. And then you've also just as secretly stopped doing the things because it's got really difficult, because you've lost motivation, because you had a stressful week, and nobody's none the wiser that you even tried it and sort of stopped. And I've seen this at the gym as well, people where they sign up and nobody speaks to them, and they turn up, they sign up, somebody might say hello to them, and before they know it, nobody knows that they've stopped going after a couple of weeks or months. And that lack of accountability, that lack of sharing your goals with the people, and having that environment where you've got somebody that you can reach out for support, leads to people stopping and not achieving their goals. So last of all was the lack of support. What can we do? And this is what I wanted these podcast episodes to be all about, is not only sort of discussing and resonating with a lot of people, but giving practical and actionable takeaways. So the first thing I'd do would be start with a SMART and grow goals, I should say. Essentially getting a plan together. So when we talk around SMART goals, you might have heard them before, but specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, which is what SMART stands for. But also understanding your goals, which SMART has already done this, your reality of where you are, which we spoke about as being one of the problems, understanding the obstacles and opportunities, and then what can you do and ways to work around those obstacles, which essentially I've done already in an episode on, which was episode 11, Beyond Smarter Goals, where we looked at the SMART model and the GROW model and how they can be used together to create amazing goals that are pretty much unbeatable. We also discussed things like approach goals and avoidance goals and the benefits of both of those, and then also the process and outcome goals as well. So set Beyond Smarter Goals, episode 11. I definitely recommend checking that out. But setting goals in that manner and using that structure can really help you get a really strong and robust plan together. Secondly, what we've already touched on is around getting support in. And this doesn't always have to be a coach or a personal trainer, even though they do have their pros and cons, but tell your friends and family, have accountability buddies, potentially start this journey with someone else who wants to achieve a similar goal, join a community, join a support group. There's lots of different ways to do this. Not only can these people help with the accountability, as I've spoken about, but the experience and expertise can help you avoid common pitfalls, mistakes, and almost find the best way to do things a lot easier. And the way that I think about it is do's, don'ts, and whys. When I work with people, it's sort of, we work on things that they probably should do, and once I get to know them a bit more and their background and what they're trying to achieve and how's best to achieve them, we can focus on the things that they can do, potentially things that they potentially should stop doing or don'ts. But a big part of it is the reason why behind it, the understanding of why these things are working, why the other things don't work, helps you with that behavior change, because knowing the why reinforces the behavior a lot more. I compare working with someone or having that community as almost having that driving instructor that teaches you how to pass your test. You pick up so many things so much more quickly, as when you sit in a car the first time, you don't know what anything does, and you've got someone there who teaches you and helps you through that process, but also gives you lots of tips and tricks along the way of how to do it, and uses really lots of good analogies. Or another way to describe it would be having that sat nav that helps you miss those traffic jams and gives you sort of good estimates with that experience in the past of understanding what things look like or what they should look like in front of you, and mapping out that path in front of you can be really useful. Potentially getting support in is worth its own episode, looking at the pros and cons, especially from my background as PT and as a nutritionist and online coach, because obviously from my side, I think my job is hugely worthwhile for people to buy into, and there's so many benefits to it, but also being aware of stories of people who worked with me, who worked with other coaches in the past, or seen potentially not great PTs on the gym floor, potential downsides of what to look out for, and depending on who you choose. So potentially it's worth its own episode, but having some support and accountability and almost that neutral perspective, which happens a lot when I work with a lot of my clients, is me taking myself out of that situation, because when you're in it, you are so emotionally invested, and you're feeling every movement of it, of going through your weight loss journey, going through all the traumas of life and work. Having that neutral perspective from the outside, going, actually, you're already doing a lot already, maybe we need to pull back on things. And that's commonly what a coach does, is actually there to hold you back a little bit from burning yourself out or pushing yourself too far or beating yourself up because you're not doing certain things. Our job there is to sort of manage that, take the pressure off, and remind you of what sort of things could be important to focus on right now, which might not seem like it has anything to do with what we're trying to achieve, but could be having a bit more rest, practicing things like your journaling, if you're finding that's a useful tool for, or if I find it's useful for a certain client. I might sit down and go, right, actually, there's a lot going on in your life at the moment. Potentially we sort of lean into the core things of making sure you get enough sleep, making sure your diet's nutritious, diverse, but not overly focusing on it, looking at things like spending time outside in nature, which we know might fill their cup, and journaling as well, giving that opportunity for headspace and gratitudes. So there's lots of different aspects there, and like I said, probably worth its own episode in regards to looking at the online PT nutritionist side of things and pros and cons and things to look out for. So I'll pencil that in for a future episode. The last thing, and potentially this is the biggest thing that people can really implement, but it's probably the most difficult in modern day, is to be patient and persistent. So we want to be persistent in our goal but flexible in our approach, that we want to keep moving forward, but that patience side of thing is really hard. Meaningful change and behavior change takes time and is a bit of an uphill struggle at points, and I'm not going to sugarcoat that in the slightest. Change is hard. If it was easy, everyone would be able to do things and change overnight. But what doesn't help as well is that we live in a Amazon Prime mentality, where everything that you want can be delivered within a couple of hours, next day. And the difference is that health and fitness doesn't work like that, especially if you want that change to stick. And this is where companies and some people will play on these wants and needs and sell you the dream of being able to get a six-pack in 6 weeks, or sneaky decoct program where you can lose 10 pounds in a week. And they lure you in by promising quicker, easier results, making the effort side seem really low and the outcome or the goal or the reward for you really, really high, when in reality they're just selling you a quick fix which doesn't really fix anything, and it's money down the drain. And often this is where people feel like they've failed, and this is what frustrates me the most about all these products and sort of schemes, is the blame often sort of falls on the participant of, well, you didn't work hard enough, and actually they've worked really hard. They've just been sold something that isn't what they actually want or need, and always it set them up to fail from the get-go by making things overly restrictive, manipulating the outcomes, which a lot of detox diets do with regards to water weight and fluctuations, reduced carbohydrates, diuretics and things like that. And they pick a very few minority of people who quote unquote succeed and use that to advertise the products, while 99% of people don't get those results and feel disheartened because they feel like they're part of the minority who fail, but actually they're part of the vast majority. With this, a good way to manage your expectations and test this patience from the get-go with weight loss, for example, would be to go through the SMART and GROW goal setting process and have a rate of progress in mind. And a common one that we might use is £0.5 to £1 a week with regards to weight loss, with actual fat loss on average, measuring that average across the week and using that as a trend. A real challenge here would be to half that amount of progress, so £0.25 to £0.5 loss per week, and seeing whether that really sits with you well, if you're happy with that progress, because in reality it could take that long. With weight loss and long-term goals, like I said, we don't want this to take away from your life, we want to add it. So I encourage my clients to sort of live as much of a balanced life as possible. We don't want to hide away in a hole for 6-12 months while they just focus on weight loss and nothing else, and neglect work and neglect family and social situations. We want them to actually integrate all these healthy habits as part of their life. With that, it might mean progress is slightly slower, but it means that it's more maintainable long term. So instead of losing the same 6, 12, 18, 24 pounds, however much you lose on a diet, usually, instead of losing and gaining that back repeatedly because you restrict, lose weight, go back to reality, and you gain weight, instead actually living in the real world and knowing how to lose weight steadily, but still incorporate these new healthy habits long term. That could take a bit longer, but you're more likely to keep the results, so you're not bouncing back, yo-yoing up and down. A key part of this is don't be discouraged if you don't see results immediately, and this is where that prime mentality and all these other detoxes, 6-week transformations can really be quite sneaky and come in there because they play on those fears that you're not making progress, when actually progress isn't linear. And this is why I say that £1 to £0.5 a week weight loss could be in half, because some weeks our body just doesn't play ball. We might progress in other areas, so performance in the gym or activity, or our balance with our work-life stress, our stress management, our sleep might improve. These are all things that we are working on, and I'll speak about in the next episode, that actually that's how a better way to focus on things rather than just having this one sole goal and trying to maximize it. And that's why we need to sort of have these multiple measures of success, so we're not discouraged when potentially one week, even though we are making progress, the way that we're measuring it is imperfect, might not show that we're making progress, and it can feel like a lot of effort for no reward. So try to think of the long game, which I know is tough. Keep working at it, keep focusing on day-to-day processes, which the SMART goals and the GROW goal setting techniques will help you manage. So if any of this is new to you, I recommend listening to episode 11, because we did a really good deep dive and overview that should help you set unbelievable goals. Focus on the day-to-day process and habits, and you will get there eventually. So there you have it. Thank you very much for listening to today's episode of the Balanced Approach podcast. If you have any questions, queries, or would like to reach out to me, please do. I am at Louis Padian Nutrition, which is at LOUISPADIAN Nutrition on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and all other social media platforms. If you're looking for support in achieving your goals and living a healthier, happier, and more balanced life in the process, click the link below and inquire about working with me. Remember to subscribe to the Balanced Approach podcast wherever you're listening for more insightful episodes, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.